Good morning, good life. You're listening to Detail Therapy, episode 82 with Marisa Sergi from Redhead Wine.
She's an award-winning YouTuber and best-selling author, obsessed with helping you go after the life you want.
I like it.
Join her as she seeks out the stories and strategies
Give me every little detail.
of extraordinary people who found success.
I'm going to get emotional. Oh my God.
Welcome to Detail Therapy with Amy Landino.
Starting Redhead was a little bit of a different story. I came from a high school that didn't have any fancy classes like APs or anything like that, and I was super overwhelmed when I got dumped on campus, and I felt like I was a little behind compared to my classmates, and you had to complete this capstone project to graduate. So what I did, I proposed that I create a wine label to bring it to life in the market and record the process. So it's really just a fun project to also prove that I deserve to graduate, but it really turned into something huge.
You just heard a little bit of my conversation with our guest today, Marisa Sergi. In this episode, we'll be discussing the details about what does it take to become a professional winemaker. Is it as difficult as it sounds? The biggest misconceptions about wine, and for those specifically who have not given it a try yet, what is life? Get on it. You're going to love it after this episode. I'm sure of it. And finally, Marisa's tip for staying motivated and how her Google Calendar plays a role in this. Like I say in the interview, I told her this is probably one of my favorite tips that's been on the show so far, so stay tuned for that. This is a really good one today. Before we get into it, for those of you who are new to the show, my name is Amy Landino and I will be your host. You can think of me as your number one productive lifestyle and success coach. I am the founder of Galu House, a resource dedicated to helping you go after the life you want. And in addition to this podcast, we produce the award-winning series on YouTube, Amy TV, of which I am also the host. I've authored 2 best-selling books, including Good Morning, Good Life, which is now available on Amazon. Links to everything will be in the show notes at our new home base on the internet, detailtherapy.online. Just type detailtherapy.online in your browser and it'll take you straight to the show notes for every episode of Detail Therapy. This is such a good one. I don't want to waste a lot of time, but there's a lot to go over because first, I would like to take one of my listener voicemails. For those of you who follow me on Instagram, you have likely seen that I dropped a phone number into the universe where you could send me your voicemail questions, and we're going to get to that in just a bit. This question is going to be about struggling with one's employer's ability to recognize work-life balance when you're working from home. Are you getting calls all hours of the day? So is our voicemail caller. So stay tuned for that Q&A. After that, we will be talking with Columbus local and winemaker, the founder of Redhead Wine, Marisa Sergi. Before we dive in, I have got to thank the sponsor of this episode of Detail Therapy, and that's our friends at .online domain names. I'm so excited to have teamed up with them. We made the show notes for Detail Therapy even easier to find and remember by being able to access them at detailtherapy.online. If you just type that URL in your browser, you'll be able to check any show notes for any guest or any episode we have done in the past. And it's just so much easier to remember. We've been on a journey with our URLs here at Detail Therapy. So that is the one that we are so excited about. And this is really important for you to think about if you are a brand of any kind, whether you're starting a business, you're doing something along the lines of a personal brand, or you're just looking for the right job for you and creating your online resume, a place where people can find you. Having the right domain that's memorable and easy to find is very important. And it's a small detail that makes a huge difference in your delivery. And in branding, delivery is very, very important. Being able to claim your brand and your memorable domain thanks to the help of the right domain extension is a very important way to stand out and make it easy to connect with you so that your community or the people that you're trying to reach can do it on their times. New domain names such as .online have made it a lot easier to make that happen, and that is why we decided to go with them as well. So I'd like for you to go and check it out. Start building your brand now by registering your .online domain by going to get.online. And if you use code Amy, you will get 90% off your 1-year domain. Yes, 90% off. Check it out. Go to get.online and use the code Amy. All right, let's dive into the Detail Therapy voicemail and hear our question of the week.
Hi, my name is Daphne, and I have a work from home question. So my question is that this was the first week that my team has worked from home altogether, and my manager has called me after what we would call regular work hours. She's called me a couple of times at around like 7:30 p.m., to ask me a question, to have an impromptu conference call with other people from the team, to ask me to complete something. And it's definitely made working from home within a time span of, 8 hours in the day difficult. I will say that the way my team has functioned in the past, because we are an accounting team and we just got out of a crazy busy season, has already been one that's over 8 hours a day. It's been like 10 hours a day. We might stay late, but it's been a little different because before at least we would like stay late in the office and then choose to take work home. But now that we're all home, it almost seems like this week I've been working 24/7. And even if I wake up early to get something done, I might still be requested to finish something late at night, which means I ended up working the whole day. So I just wanted to ask how, I guess, communicate that and also try to like that to change and become one that's 24/7, but one that has like its set boundaries so that it doesn't like seep into my regular home life. Thank you.
I'm sure there are so many people that can relate to this, Daphne. Thank you so much for your question. And this is something, especially as a leader in my organization, I think about a lot, because once you start to blur the lines, specifically, let's talk about, the former life of this work, is that it wouldn't be weird for you to stay very late or take work home. And that's really where the culture starts to happen. Even if, your leader said nothing of the sort, never said, I expect you to take work home. And this is why I always have this conversation with my team specifically, is that I don't want to make it seem like I'm very comfortable reaching out to them late into the night, or if there's an extraordinary situation where I have actually asked my editor, hey, can we get something out? I know it's different hours. I'm willing to give and take. If you help me get something done on the weekend or something later into the evening, I'll take those hours from someplace else and give you a Friday afternoon off. I always keep that conversation going because I want to make sure as the leader that that's not coming off as an expectation of me, that you work more hours than you are being paid to work, or hours that are unclear are time off for you. This is very important, I think, as an employee, right off the bat, making sure those boundaries are in place for you. Because if you start to teach your employer, your team leader, or anyone, or really even just coworkers, that you're willing to pick up the email or pick up the project at any point in time in any part of the day, they're going to remember that. And things are not going to be better. They're not going to change when you are suddenly in a pandemic situation, or the office needs to close for some reason and you're working from home. So the biggest thing for me is, and I was just thinking about this last night. I was, considering when people say like, oh, how do you stay so focused? How do you keep your head? And I'm like, I am just like everyone else, that somebody is always barking up my tree about something. Someone's always sending me an email. Someone's always trying to call me on the phone. Someone's always trying to peek into my office. Someone's always trying to Slack me. Someone's always trying to Trello me. Someone's always there. That's always going to be there until you show some kind of boundary and it is made known in the most, appropriate way possible, no one's going to know to respect that boundary. So I think the hardest part now, probably for a lot of people like Daphne, and specifically for Daphne, is that we're approaching a topic that has never, to my knowledge, according to your voicemail, has never been approached, right? You've basically allowed this culture to continue for the entire time that you've worked there. And I'm not saying it's your fault, because I think other people, like your leaders and your coworkers, should be respectful of your personal time as well. But they're not being asked to think about it, so they're not really having their feet held to the fire. Where if you always were to communicate, oh, just so you know, I didn't see that email because I don't check it before 9 a.m. Or just so you know, I didn't know that project was due first thing in the morning because you assigned it after I log off for the day. And just starting to work those terms or that sort of lingo into the way that you speak. If you never speak about boundaries, they don't exist. Even if, I have a very big boundary that goes out in my email. I just make it very clear to absolutely everyone that sends me an email that there's a strong possibility I will not see it, much less reply to it for a number of days. So there's contact information for my assistant. I realize that people who work for someone can't do something like that the majority of the time, but they can have an out of office email if it's instructing, hey, I log off whether I'm working from home or not after this period of time. Now let's get to the real heart of the issue, because you can do all those things. You can start to drop the seedlings, but it's probably not going to change your life overnight. Going to somebody of authority that you need to be able to speak to about this and say, hey, I think I've gotten to an unhealthy place with my work-life balance. I feel frazzled. I feel like I'm not covering my bases. If I'm doing good work, I'm not feeling good about it. And so I just need to be able to communicate with you what I need to thrive and find out how we can find that happy medium so that you're still happy with the quality of work and your ability to call on me, but also allow me to say, I'm checking out for the day. I'm having dinner with my family. I can have a glass of wine and not worry that I'm going to miss something that the team needs from me. And of course, you're going to have your knowledge of respecting the seasons and respecting the high periods. And maybe there are times where you have to work 10 hours a day, and that's probably something that was communicated to you as an acceptable thing that you signed up for, or a not acceptable thing when you signed on for the job. So without those nuances, just being able to say, listen, I am not in a good place with my work-life balance. I'm already struggling a little bit to, find the office space that I need in my home. And I know that I can be more efficient, but there are some things that I'm going to have to change in order to make that happen. Here are a couple of ideas that I have right off the bat that would be super helpful for me. Which of them sound feasible for you? And I think that's the biggest thing. Is it's not I'm coming in here to stomp my foot. I mean, there's only so much that you're going to be able to do that depending on who you are in your position. But if you are in a position where you need to ask, you need to make it sound like you're asking, but you also need to be clear on what you're asking for and make it a dialogue. Just going in with, hey, these are some ideas I have that I really think would increase my efficiency by like at least 40%. What are you willing to entertain here? And what can I have as a backup plan if you're willing to entertain these, but then they don't work for you in the moment? And start to feel it out and just ask, say, hey, can we try something? I'm only going to check my email from 9 to 6, whatever time zone it is. And just let me try that for a week so I can see if it works for everyone. Doing things on a trial basis. A lot of these ideas I'm getting, I just got from rereading The 4-Hour Workweek, which he kind of coaches you through a different kind of process. It's actually kind of an interesting read to pick up right now because it talks about how you can start working from home by asking your boss. And it's like, okay, everyone's working from home right now, or maybe not so much anymore. We're starting to go back to the office for some of us. But he has some really, really good advice in there about approaching it with your superior. So I actually highly recommend picking up that book for you, Daphne, and really for anyone else thinking about this, whether you're trying to figure out how to work from home or you're just trying to figure out how to nicely instruct a boundary conversation with those you work with, I think that could be a good resource to pick up as well if, just the tips here today are just the starting point for you. So definitely check that out. And Daphne, thank you so much for calling in and leaving a voicemail question. I will be popping up this graphic when we start taking voicemail questions again. We're getting ready to close down this season of Detailed Therapy, but I will be taking many, many, many more questions in the future. And I hope to hear from many more voices of those who have their earbuds in right now. All right, now I'd like to introduce you to our guest today. Marisa Sergi is a third-generation winemaker and the force behind her company, Redhead Wine. Marisa grew up in the business and soon found it to be her full-time position. Her secret to unlocking the magic of a wine lies in the deep involvement of the winemaker. Redhead Wine has successfully expanded to Ohio, West Virginia, Pennsylvania, and will soon be available in Kentucky and Virginia. Today, Marisa has reached a global spotlight with recognition by media outlets such as Success Magazine and has spoken for organizations such as Walmart. Let's get into it with Marisa Sergi. Marisa Sergi, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Why do you do what you do?
I mean, who wouldn't want a career in wine? It's definitely the best thing I've ever ran into through my family tradition of winemaking. And as a third generation winemaker, it's something I would imagine not being part of my life. It's something that has really emphasized just what life is all about. And it's been a really fulfilling career so far.
That's awesome. I have to say, I feel like I am under prepared for this particular interview because we tried like crazy to get our hands on Redhead Wine and my assistant could not pull it off. So clearly you're doing a great job because you are selling out wherever we're shopping and it's just so exciting. I would love to hear more about that journey. I'm not going to ask you how old you are, but you're very young and you're a business owner and you have a wine line. And I know that this has been a part of your family line, but I don't want to discount how tremendous of a feat that is to launch a wine brand and to be in stores like Walmart for sale. Can you talk about what this has looked like from, going from, and my husband, by the way, can super relate to this. Vincenzo has been making wine with his family for a long time too. They do more of like the house wine, but you've been making wine since the 5th grade with your family. Your family immigrated from Italy. So this is clearly quite natural, something that you would always do as a family anyway. But how did you go from that to actually launching a wine brand and deciding that you were going to sell it and create this company?
I really had a crisis on what I wanted to do with my life in high school. A lot of my friends were deciding on what majors they wanted and a career path, and I just really was stumped. And the first thing I did was take a step back and realize what I actually enjoyed doing. And I was so fortunate to actually be able to answer that question. Growing up in a family that enjoyed winemaking, my father started a winery, so I was around that pretty often. And I realized that Cornell University offered a wine degree called viticulture and enology. I'm like, oh my goodness, this is meant to be. So I applied and I was so grateful to be able to get accepted into the program. And that's how I really got started on this whole path. But starting Redhead was a little bit of a different story. I came from a high school that didn't have any fancy classes like APs or anything like that. And I was super overwhelmed when I got dumped on campus and I felt like I was a little behind compared to my classmates. And I discovered that there was something called a capstone. You had to complete this capstone project to graduate. So what I did, I proposed that I create a wine label to bring it to life in the market and record the process. So it was really just a fun project to also prove that I deserved to graduate, but it really turned into something huge, way bigger than I ever expected, to be honest.
I think that's so much fun. I feel like those are the best educational experiences that we get are the ones that I guess like introduce us to the fact that just what we learn in school is not enough. There's so much more ahead for us. And so any preparation we can do during those really critical times where we're trying to figure out who we are. And I can totally identify with the whole like having a crisis in high school and trying to figure out like where are we going from here. Do you feel like I guess your connection to wine is so family oriented. Do you think that that's where the majority of the passion comes from for you? Or was there anything that was introduced as you continue to get educated about wine that actually helped this to become such a passion for you that it's your work?
It was definitely my family. Growing up in an Italian household, there's nothing but passion there, from the food, the conversations, the friends, and of course the traditions. And knowing that I can take what my grandparents brought to this country in the 50s into the rest of my life was super awesome to even think about being possible. But also, while I was studying at school, I realized that there was so much more to wine than just the whole fermentation and science part of it. There was a lot of creativity. There was a lot of ways to introduce wine in a non-pretentious way by getting creative. And for me, that was a new challenge, because when I discussed a lot with my friends and other peers on campus, wine was kind of intimidating. I thought, why can't I try to change things up and make wine more approachable as one of my goals throughout my whole journey? So that's kind of why I launched Redhead as well, to make it more fun and young and something that anyone could enjoy.
I love that because my passion is to be an expert at wine, but I know that's unrealistic.
Oh, I
Right?
have
It's like
no doubt you could do it.
I'm like, I think I'm going to become a sommelier. And then I'm like, no, I just like drinking it. Maybe I should just work on identifying the actual nodes and the scents and and the places where these grapes are from and things like that. Just maybe learn about it as I go and just appreciate it. So I guess that's one question I want to start with. What do you think is making wine such a big barrier to entry for people to appreciate? I think it's over the last, let's say, 15 years or so, I think it's become so much more of like something a lot of us enjoy versus like a beer or a cocktail where it's more approachable. But I mean, what are some of the misconceptions about wine that are something we can kind of put to bed that would make wine a little bit more approachable for people to consider drinking, so it's not like, oh, like I don't know what kind, I don't know, what are those biggest barriers, I guess?
I truly believe it's mostly the marketing from the past, when wine has been shown in media or movies. You're at a fancy steakhouse, the violins are playing in the background, and there's a wine list that's like a million miles long. And it is definitely intimidating with the ways that wine can be described in an environment like that. But trying to transition the view and conversation to be a little more approachable when it comes to the names of wines, when it comes to a brand, or how you describe it, or where you actually consume it. It could be at a concert or at a picnic or just hanging out watching Netflix. I think introducing wine into more approachable everyday situations than at that fancy steakhouse has really helped bridge the gap to make wine more interesting to other demographics. And for me, I try to make it a little more fun with how I talk to my followers, and I call them my redhead wine enthusiasts, just to make it a little more, I guess, make it more of a popping type of approach, where when you want wine, you could have it at any time. And that's what I really try to emphasize.
I'm so on board with that. Okay, so now I'm just gonna totally selfishly ask you about the winemaking process. What does it actually look like for you to go, I have an idea for a wine, I want to make it, and starting that process? What does it look like to make wine professionally?
It's actually fairly simple. It's all about the ingredients. It's nearly like baking a cake. Do you want it to be sweet? Do you want it to be tangy? Do you want it to be spicy? There are a lot of ways that you can approach the formulation, and a really great step is to, one, explore your own wines that you can have available in the market and see what profiles you enjoy the most from certain varietals. So if you like a Zinfandel that's fruit forward but zesty and spicy, or a fruit forward Pinot Noir, you kind of get an idea of, well, if I mix these two together, what will it be like? Will it complement each other? Will it cancel out some of the attributes and make something new? So for me, it was just going back to what I really found to enjoy, which is smooth and fruit forward wines. And I took several varietals that had those attributes and ended up having a recipe of 60% Zinfandel and 40% Carmenere, which is my Redhead Red Blend that I launched back in 2013. So it was more of just kind of seeing what made sense and fit the bill for what I wanted to envision and just kind of experiment with it, putting a little bit here, a little bit there, and just taste testing it to see what tasted right, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Oh my, it just like sounds like so much fun. What do you think? I mean, like, let's be honest, right? Like everything, even when it's a passion, it becomes your career. Sometimes it's, it feels a little bit like a job still. It just sounds too sexy to get to that point. Like it just sounds like too much fun. But if there was anything where it's like the hard part of being a winemaker versus like the luxurious part, which I think is what you're talking about with coming up with your perfect cake version of wine. What are some of the hard parts about being a winemaker?
I truly believe it's all in my head. Sometimes when I get too inundated with a certain thing I'm trying to accomplish, I think just kind of taking that step back and realizing it's wine, it's supposed to be fun. I don't want it to be something super serious in my life, although it is my career, but it should be something that's enjoyable, not something forced or you have to feel it needs to be a certain way. And for me, it's really just getting out of my own head and saying, hey, if this is becoming too complicated, walk away, start fresh when you have that new energy. Because I feel like if you feel good about something while you're doing it, it's going to turn out 10 times better. And I really try to emphasize that whole policy in the rest of my daily life as well.
That's good advice. I know you just said you have the red blend. I know there's a redhead rosé. I just cannot wait to try these. How many other wines do you have in your line currently? And then I have a follow-up question to that.
It's a little complicated. So the Redhead brand does have the red blend and rosé, but I also make over 35 other wines through Luvabella Winery, which is the winery that my fiance and I own. We just transitioned the business from my father and mother about 2 months ago, so it's been quite the journey. And
Wow.
we're really trying to look at what other lines we want to add or take away because we really want to have simple offerings yet different options depending on what kind of wine you enjoy.
Okay, well, if you need anybody to chime in on your next wine, I would be happy to do that.
Oh, definitely. I'll send you a bunch of samples. So I definitely will hold you to it.
I am ready. I am ready. Okay, so let's just focus on Redhead for now then. Redhead, Red Blend and the Rosé. If somebody's going to pick up both of these wines today at the store, and I'll have to ask you, what the best stores are to pop into. What would you recommend for their first sip of Redhead? What should they pair with each of those wines? It doesn't have to be a whole meal, just like the ideal thing to eat with the wine.
I love simplicity, and for my Redhead Red Blend, that's very smooth and fruit forward and has a very light spice to it. I love to have a chocolatey piece of cake. It is such a decadent yet simple indulgence with the wine that it really is a great way to end your evening or celebrate something special or just to treat yourself. But also, I have two rosés. One is dry and fruit forward, almost Provence style with a twist. I really emphasize the excitement for a higher alcohol content. So my dry rosé is 13.9%. It pairs really well with any citrus-based salads, fruits, even
Oh.
if you want to pair it with something very unique, you can do it with brunch and have pancakes with a fruit compote or something in that nature, as well as my sweet rosé that is just sweet and sassy, full of citrus and pear and strawberry. You can pair that with any sorbet or fruit-based ice cream. You could have it by itself with, just a night catching up with your friends. I don't always like to pair my wines with foods. You can pair it with moods or things that you're doing too. It just kind of makes things a little more fun and fresh.
I love that. Pairing it with a mood. That's usually me also. Okay, but I definitely wanted those pro tips because when I sit down and have these for the first time, which I'm very much looking forward to, you're going to have to twist my arm on a chocolate piece of cake. Fine. I guess I could do that. That sounds awesome. Okay, great. So where can we pick up Redhead wine so we can give it a try?
We are definitely expanding daily in new stores, but in the Columbus area specifically, Walmart, Meijer, and select mom and pop locations, and Homebuys also has it. Homebuys has a huge wine section. They pretty much have everything that you can imagine there when it comes to wine and beer. So definitely one of those hidden secrets that you wouldn't expect Homebuys to have a wine section. But I'll definitely send you a list of locations so you can get a few bottles as well. But I don't even mind sending you a bunch of samples so you can try some wines from Luvabella that aren't heavily distributed in the market as well.
Yeah, I would love that. I just want to make sure everybody can find both Luvabella and Redhead wines. So we will definitely make sure that we have a resource somewhere to point people to, point to the websites if you would like to give it a try. Marisa, I'd like to ask you some details about your day-to-day, starting with your morning routine. Do you have one? And if you do, what is it like?
It's really important to wake up when your alarm goes off because once you start snoozing, it's kind of, you're going into the black abyss and never coming out of it. So I really try to wake up immediately around 6 a.m. And one of the best ways to combat waking up, if you're not a morning person, is just going straight to the bathroom and splashing cold water on your face. You're instantly refreshed and trying to get recalibrated with being awake rather than deep sleeping. And that's something that's really important to getting my day started. But of course, I have an espresso with a little bit of honey and milk. It is a great way to just kind of have that little peaceful moment to my morning. I love coffee. I actually have talked to your husband before because we connected through D-Rock's Instagram and we share love for Dunkin'. So if I'm not having time to make my Nespresso, I go straight to Dunkin', and that's definitely one of my favorite parts of my morning as well.
I love that. We have such a Dunkin' addiction over here. We usually have to buy it at the store because there's just not that many Dunkin' Donuts in Columbus, which Marissa, I'm sure you can relate. Maybe you're closer to one. We're pretty far living in the urban core, but anyway, we still get there. I love that. And I want to try espresso with honey and milk. I had never really thought to do that, so that's a good tip too. And I can also personally relate to the water splashing. It's got to happen. What do you do to stay active on a regular basis? Do you have a favorite workout regimen or anything like that?
Definitely love going to the gym. I'm a member at Tremont Athletic Club. It is one of the best gyms I've ever been to. They have an amazing array of equipment and personal trainers. I train with KJ Johnson at least once a week. He is one of the best in the industry in Cleveland. He really kicks my ass every week, but on the days that I don't train, I am definitely on the Stairmaster. I like to call it, you have to burn and then earn. So lots of cardio, and then the last part of my workout, I'm doing a lot of weight exercises to try to get a little bit of extra muscle. So when I'm powering in and out of these retail stores, checking on the wine and saying hello to managers, I have that extra little power to get through the 12 hours sometimes I spend out there. So my workout regimen is super important. I make sure to go at least 4 to 5 times a week.
Is there a book or other resource that you recommend? It doesn't have to be something recent, but something that has positively impacted your life that you would share. Not sure if you're a reader or if there's something else that you enjoy as a resource that you could share with the community.
Definitely. I love podcasts, especially when I'm driving for many hours in a day. I pretty much spend 10 to 15 hours in my car each week if I am checking on stores. And of course, I love Gary Vee's podcast. He's super in your face and gets a lot of unique guests on the show to really keep things fresh. So if I'm not listening to music, I'm definitely listening to a podcast like Gary's, and it really helps motivate me to go the extra mile, which is super important when you're self-employed.
Is there anything specifically that helps you to stay organized? So are you like a to-do list person, a project manager person, a calendar person, an email person? Like where do you tend to resort back to stay organized?
If I didn't have my Google Calendar, I'd probably be a disaster and a half. I always keep notes to remind myself to do things there, or of course my meetings or things I want to do. It's all in my Google Calendar, so I pray that it doesn't crash or go away because I don't know what I would do with myself without it. I even keep things a few years in advance, like these little checkpoints. So like 3 years from now on a random day, I have a checkpoint to write down my dreams and goals, and it's a really nice surprise to have it pop up on my calendar to see how far I've come or where I need to recalibrate things. It's almost like a little love note to yourself to work towards too. And it really is a lot of fun to have them pop up randomly on my calendar throughout the years.
Okay. This is probably one of my favorite tips I've heard so far on the show. Can you be like really specific about one? Like what is one that you've planted on your calendar for the future that you're working toward?
Absolutely. It's kind of scary to share it, but sometimes when you're vulnerable and you share some of your deepest, darkest goals, that's when it really comes to fruition.
Put it out there. I love it.
Yes. So one of my dreams is to make it in the pages of Forbes magazine. I think it's just such an honor, and it has many, many years of history throughout business and entrepreneurship. So 3 years from now, I have a little reminder to say, like, have you made it in Forbes yet? If not, keep going. There's so many ways to accomplish your dreams, or it doesn't happen fairly fast. There's so many years left to your life. You don't have to accomplish everything before you turn 35. There's just so much to offer, and it's a lot of ways to get motivated. But yeah, I definitely want to be in Forbes. That would be so amazing. But hey, you never know.
I am so obsessed with this right now. That is the next appointment that's going on my calendar. I am going to plan that. And also, thank you for saying that because I just turned 35. So it's good to know.
Well, congratulations. Happy belated birthday.
Thank you. It's very important to point out to everybody that there's not a deadline. You should use up every minute you have to the most of your ability, but also be kind to yourself because there's something that you need in order to achieve your greatest dreams, and that is time. So
I cannot agree more.
Love that. Oh my God. That is definitely one of my favorites. Okay, so
thank you.
We know to pop into the shops, pick up some Redhead wine. Is there anywhere else that you want to let people know how to follow up with you, check in with you on social? Where can we see your best work and stay tuned with you?
Absolutely. I mean, any person in 2020 is on social media, and I absolutely love using my platforms to show people what I'm doing or talk about wine and everything in between. So you can find me at Marisa Sergi on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. But if you want to follow my Redhead Wine account, you can definitely find me at Redhead Wine on the same platforms as well. But I actually just started using TikTok. So if you want to peek into the TikTok world of Marisa Sergi, definitely you can find my handle on there as well.
Awesome. Love that. In just a few minutes, I'd like to challenge you to the secret show if you're up for it.
Hell yeah. I am never denying a challenge.
All right. This is only a secret because it's for my friends over in Shine Squad only. So if you'd like to hear Marisa's secret show, hop over to patreon.com/AmyTV. But before we do that, I have to ask you my final question, Marisa. What does it mean to you to go after the life you want?
Just being fearless. I feel like we only have one life. Why hold yourself back with fear? Just go do it. Show up, ask that question, go for that raise, go for that dream life. And I feel that for me personally, fear has been the most crippling thing, and just really telling myself to go for it has really helped me get to where I'm at today. And I'm just so grateful that I'm able to have some of those nuggets of wisdom, which my father taught me when I was very young.
Marisa Sergi, thanks for being on the show.
Thank you so much, Amy, for having me. I'm absolutely honored to be a guest on your podcast.
Let's catch the deets from this episode with Marisa. First of all, Is anyone else going to be tabbing years forward in their Google Calendar to plant random little, not random, but like milestone goals on your calendar so that you hope to achieve them and read them someday and go, oh my gosh, I did that. I love the idea of letters to your future self or Google appointments to your future self. Like, what fun. That was really one of my favorite tips. I feel like it's so perfect for this audience and for me. So really excited that she shared that. Also, just because something is a family tradition doesn't mean that it can't be your passion. So maybe if you've been looking for your passion and you're really not sure, is there something closer to you, maybe too close, that you might have forgotten it was even a possibility that you can say, hey, actually, that's supernatural to me because we've been doing this for generations as well. Is there something close to you that you're not taking seriously enough in finding your passion? And finally, pick up a little bit of wine. Give it a try. Try different things. Try to taste it and try pairing it with different foods and different moods, just like Marisa talked about. I am very excited to try this wine. I'm so sad it's just been sold out and I have not been able to get my hands on it yet. But if you are in one of the states where it is available, I hope you will pick it up and give it a try and start to explore your ability to experiment with the tastes and the smells and the enjoyment of wine. I'd love to hear what your favorite part of this episode was. Pop over to our Instagram at Details Podcast and comment below the face of Marisa Sergi there on our feed to let us know, and make sure you say hi to her on her accounts as well. We will leave all of those links where you can pick up the wine, where you can follow her on social in the show notes. And don't forget to check out Marisa's secret podcast. It's available right now over in Shine Squad. Head over to patreon.com/AmyTV. Thanks again to the sponsor of this episode of Detail Therapy. That's our friends at Get Online. Make sure you get your branded, special, and memorable URL over at get.online with code AMY for 90% off. Link will be in the show notes. That's all for today. Thank you so much for tuning in. I appreciate it as always. Remember, subscribe for good vibes, kiss the ones you love, and go after the life you want. I'll see you here next week for our season 4 finale. Cheers.